What's up, you guys? It's Graham here, and believe it or not, we have a brand new housing bill that just went through that's supposed to be lowering housing prices. So I want to go through this, talk about exactly what's in it, what it's likely to do, and why Donald Trump didn't sign it. Because there's a lot of misinformation floating around on the internet that I've seen that are completely untrue, so let's debunk the facts as soon as you hit the like button and subscribe. That's all I ask for, and as a thank you for doing that, here's a picture of a puffer fish. So thanks so much, and also big thank you to Gamma for sponsoring this video, but more on that later.
The largest housing bill in decades has just become law after weeks of tense political standoff between President Trump and Congress.
Now, right off the bat, we got to clear up the misconception here. The reason Trump didn't sign this housing bill, even though it's bipartisan, both sides equally wanted this one to go through because it's for the housing market. The reason Trump didn't sign is because he said that if the SAVE Act doesn't pass, which has to do with voter registration and showing ID when you vote, if that doesn't pass, he's not signing this one. Well, guess what? The SAVE Act got stalled in Congress. And because that got stalled, he just took a stand that he's not signing this one. Now, the thing is, even if he doesn't sign it after 10 days anyway, it just gets passed into law. So this is more of like an act of defiance than actually trying to shoot this down. So it went into effect. So with that said, here's exactly what it does.
Now comes the real test. Can this ambitious legislation actually make housing affordable again?
I'm going to be right up front. The answer that you're all waiting for, I know everyone's hoping, oh yes, this is going to solve all of my problems. Everything is going to go away. We're all going to be able to buy a house now. The answer is, drumroll, no, this ain't going to do a damn thing. I'm sorry to tell you. I'm going to show you exactly what's in it and why it's not going to work. But that right up front there, it's all performative. All of this stuff, it's smoke and mirrors. It's to take your eyes away from everything else that's going on and say, oh, look, we tried to pass this thing and our intentions were great. And, you know, even though we got this, it's all these other things. And then they got to tackle a bajillion other things. So let's go through it and show you exactly what it does. Maybe for some people, it'll help you a little bit, but this isn't going to have a big effect. Let's go into it.
At its core, the 21st Century Road to Housing Act focuses on three major reforms. First, the law aims to increase the supply of housing by making it easier to build more homes.
Good luck on that. Oh yeah, a document is going to make it easier to build a house. Give me a break. For anyone who's actually tried to do a remodel, pull permits, do a new construction, anything, my gosh, that's not going to be solved with a few pieces of paper. There are so many moving parts. There's regulation at the state level, then the city level, and the county level. And then you're dealing with contractors, construction people, trying to get permits for every little thing imaginable. And then you got the cost of goods, like going and trying to buy a refrigerator. You know how much refrigerators have gone up in price lately? Every single appliance. Then you're dealing with the cost of copper and all these different, faucets and drywall and paint and like all this nonsense that gets shipped from around the world. A few pieces of paper ain't gonna solve that. I'm telling you firsthand, performative, but we'll continue.
Researchers have long argued that America's affordability crisis is fundamentally a supply problem. Studies have shown a strong link between the number of homes available and how much people pay to buy or rent them. The median price of an existing home in the U.S. reached $429,300 in May. That's up 50.8% from May 2020. And 30-year fixed mortgage rates continue to hover around 6.5%.
All that's doing is creating what's called a lock-in effect. So everyone who bought a house or owned a house before 2021, when interest rates fell, everyone is locked in at like 2.8 to really 3.5%. Those people are not selling because if they were to sell, what do? They're facing a limited supply on the market and then they're getting a new interest rate at 6.5%. So their payment is basically going to more than double. All that means is that everyone who bought a house, they're staying put. They're not moving. Now we have fewer supply on the market. And so yes, it's a supply problem. If we had more housing to go on the market, great. But the problem is that there's only a few states that are really good at like building housing, and Texas is one of them, Florida is one of them, and that's the reason why you're seeing housing prices decline substantially. Like Austin, Texas, I believe is down almost 25% in the last few years in terms of housing prices. So that's way more affordable than it used to be. Interest rates obviously creeping up. It's not helping the affordability crisis, but overall, it really just comes down to state, city, county. Can they actually create the infrastructure to speedline permits, to get things built? Do they want houses built? I'd argue a lot of coastal cities in California do not want housing built. They don't want more housing. They just want people to leave, to go somewhere else, and then they have their peace and quiet.
By 2025, the U.S. housing shortage had grown to more than 4 million homes.
Now, part of the reason this policy is so difficult to explain is that it's not just one item changing. You have interest rates, zoning, construction costs, government incentives, and affordability all overlapping at the exact same time. Like, this would have gone over way better had they just created a clear presentation. And I get the reason why they didn't do it. Because it sounds simple until you're staring at a blank PowerPoint with a wall of information trying to make it look halfway decent. That's why I use our sponsor, Gamma, all the time. And that's why they're there to help. For those unaware, Gamma makes it effortless to create polished, professional presentations without needing design skills, without starting from scratch, and without spending hours messing with layouts. In fact, they have ready-to-use templates that basically do all the work for you. I'm talking layouts, the spacing, the visual consistency, so all you have to do is add your own content and customize it. You could use it for client pitches, presentations. Sometimes I'm doing speaking engagements, and I could just copy all the information that I want to use, and then it aggregates all the information in the exact order that I need it, with even pictures. It's pretty incredible. For example, I recently bought this entire 55-card Mars Attacks set from 1962 off eBay, and instead of framing them and putting them up on the wall, I wanted to display them prominently in the living room. So how do I do this and convince my wife? Well, with a presentation, of course. All I had to do was tell Gamma exactly the objective I wanted to achieve, and in no time, I had a full-scale presentation with images and everything. This doesn't just save time, but it makes it look like this is a presentation that an agency put together for you on your behalf, except you did it all yourself. And like I said, this would have saved me so many hours if I had this when I was doing speaking engagements on the real estate market or on real estate agent sales. I wish I had this back then, because I would have saved days. So if you want to create presentations that actually stand out without the blank page stress, click the link down below in the description to learn more and get started, or you could scan the QR code right now on the screen. Again, I highly recommend it. It's a really fun and easy program to use. So again, the link is down below in the description, QR code on the screen. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the video.
We underbuilt housing following the Great Recession, and we've really never fully caught up. At the same time, population grew. We had a pandemic-driven surge in demand. We had a demographic demand coming from millennials. The result is that more buyers are competing for fewer homes, which has pushed home prices and rents higher.
The thing is, a lot of people argue that we don't actually have a housing shortage. What do you mean we don't have a housing shortage? We're short all these homes. We have so many houses out there. The problem is that people don't want to live where the housing is. Like, just go on Zillow. You could find, believe it or not, so many houses under $150,000 that you could buy. So many houses under even $120,000. The problem, no one wants to live there because they're in the middle of nowhere and there's not a lot of good job opportunities there. And that's the problem. Where everyone wants to live, a few select cities in the United States, and in those cities, it just happens to be very expensive, but that's where the jobs are, that's where the opportunities are, it's walking distance, climate's fantastic. But if we look just at housing itself, there is housing throughout the United States that nobody wants.
The new law attempts to close that gap by combining federal incentives for new construction with reforms designed to speed up home construction. It supports faster permitting and encourages local governments to allow more housing through zoning reforms. It also reduces regulatory barriers that builders argue slow projects and increase construction costs.
Now here's the thing, everyone hears that, oh yeah, they're incentivizing builders, they're doing this, and I'll tell you what they're actually doing. They're giving up to $200 million to update zoning, allow more density, reduce parking minimums, streamline permitting, and bonuses tied, probably at the state or city level, to how much housing they could create. The problem is that $200 million, and you think, that's a drop in the bucket. I mean, $200 million, that's the price of a single house in Bel Air. And you're telling me that's somehow going to solve the housing crisis or help it in the entire United States? I'm telling you, $200 million, not enough for most of these people to even get out of bed in the morning when you split it across the entire country. Now, the second thing they claim to do is streamline the environmental review of certain housing projects. But again, it's like, okay, it might take 2 years to go through the environmental for some of the big projects, but now it might only take a year and a half, maybe a year. I mean, I still don't see this as substantial enough, but we also go to number 3. They want to be able to convert offices to housing. And it sounds great. Take a big office building or an abandoned mall and then convert it to housing. The problem is that nothing is set up. Like, you have to run gas lines, plumbing lines. It's actually more expensive to convert a lot of office buildings than it would be just to tear the entire thing down. So this one, 100% performative. It sounds good until you actually get the logistics of it and you realize that's not feasible. It's actually cheaper for us just to start over, because we're not converting a mall or an office space into apartment. You can't do it. You got to start over. That's the cheaper option. And then we have standardized housing designs, really for like ADUs and smaller projects where they have like these floor plans, like kind of like tract houses, like these floor plans, this square footage on these lots, already pre-approved. You select one of these, you pick one, and we go ahead and build it. This one might have the most legs to it. I could see this one helping, but again, it's still not going to deter the cost from coming down. But let's continue.
The second reform aims to make housing finance easier to access. For example, the law expands access to mortgage financing for lower-cost homes that have been traditionally difficult to finance. It also updates federal financing programs that support investment and construction of multifamily housing.
Now, this is interesting, but it's ultimately going to come down to a lot of the banks on whether or not they're going to do it. Because here's the thing. When a bank goes and gives a person a mortgage, they're doing the same amount of work, whether they give a $500,000 mortgage or a $5,000 mortgage. Same amount of work. So for a lot of these bigger banks, they basically say, hey, if we're not going to be doing all this work, running around like a chicken with its head cut off to give you an $80,000 loan. It's not worth it for us for a mortgage. But if you come to us at $200,000, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do it. So they're basically trying to incentivize these banks to say, okay, give people $80,000 mortgages on lower priced houses at competitive interest rates, the same as you treat everyone else. But those locations don't have trouble selling. I mean, $80,000 house, they're going to find a way to get financing on that thing. And no one wants to live there is the problem, because there's not a lot of opportunities. A lot of these are pretty rural. So can this help? Yes. Will it? Not on a big scale.
By lowering financing barriers for home buyers and housing developers, lawmakers hope to encourage more housing construction while making home ownership more accessible.
It's so easy. All they have to do if they want to encourage building is say, hey, if you start a project in the next 5 years and you complete it in the next 10 years, no taxes on the gains. There you go. Oh my gosh. Housing would skyrocket. Just tell people we're not going to tax you if you build housing. It's so easy. I promise you, every single person would put all of their money in housing projects because they know they'll get a return. They would build so much. And guess what? The government doesn't need the extra tax money. They're blowing so much of it anyway. We have wasted so much money just on random nonsense that you think you can't give developers just tax-free profits. That would do it. Just one page. All construction costs, if you start brand new from scratch, you build this many units in this time frame, tax-free. That would single-handedly solve the entire housing crisis across the United States. Just forego federal and state taxes. I promise if you do that, if anyone is listening, if you just do that, we're done. Okay? We could solve this whole thing in 12 years. We're done.
The final reform aims to limit large institutional investors from buying single-family homes. Under the new law, companies that own at least 350 single-family homes would generally be prohibited from purchasing additional single-family homes. Certain companies with specific requirements, such as building homes specifically for the build-to-rent market, would be exempt.
Of course it would, because that's dumb. Like, imagine what they're trying to say is that, okay, if a company like BlackRock is out there, it's really Blackstone. Everyone likes to say BlackRock, Blackstone. If they're out there and they buy a plot of land and they build all these rental units as single families and they rent them out, oh, that's bad. So this exempts that, which I agree with. But the thing is, institutional buyers are largely not buying single-family residences. They buy huge multifamily apartment buildings. So if they do buy single-family residences, it's very isolated. They're never scattered around. It's less than 0.5% of all the rental supply on the market belongs to institutional investors like that. So I would say, again, this one is performative. Sounds great on paper. In reality, it has nothing to do with anyone buying a home. I promise these big institutional hedge funds are not competing with Joe and Sally down the street trying to buy their first-time starter house that needs a little work. I promise you, they don't care.
Supporters argue the measure will give individual buyers a better chance to compete for homes. However, the extent to which large institutional investors have contributed to rising home prices remains up for debate. One study estimated that institutional investors own about 0.5% of all single-family homes in the United States. Another analysis of 19 major metropolitan areas found little to no relationship between institutional investor ownership and home price appreciation between 2019 and 2024.
What did I say? You know what? Props for CNBC at least for being a little more middle of the road and not just taking everything as face value and saying, oh, this is great. Because when it comes to a lot of these policies, I've just seen they do nothing. It's just like people celebrate them briefly and then they move on and their lives go on and housing prices just get more and more unaffordable. So a lot of this stuff, I think it's not going to work.
They're not necessarily the main culprit in this story. It's really small and medium-sized investors that comprise a much larger share of home buyers, and they're not even mentioned in this bill.
No, you know who you're most likely to compete with is another owner-user. There's 80% of buyers out there are buying for themselves. You are competing with other people who just want to live in the house. That's it. Your buyer is not hedge fund or Ken Griffin. They don't care about any of this stuff. They don't care that, the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom Tudor down the street just went up for sale and there's a whole bunch of offers on it. Hedge funds are one step ahead of that. They're just building their own houses somewhere else that they could rent out, and then they control the inventory. They control the management of it. So that's what's really going on.
But even if the law proves effective, experts say it could take years before Americans see a meaningful impact on housing costs.
The short-term impact of the housing bill will likely be very modest because most of this bill's tools are supply-side measures, and you can't pass a legislation today and then have thousands of new homes available next month, unfortunately.
Like I said, all of this is just to incentivize certain cities and counties and states to look into the matter further. They're basically just giving people, here's $200 million. Go and look into this for us. That's all they're saying. Go and see if we could move a few things around. Go and see if maybe we could speed things up a little. Just take a look at it. And here's $200 million to go and take a look at it. That's what our tax money is doing, guys. Oh my gosh. That's where it's going. Just take a look at it. Let's incentivize banks. Let's give them a thumbs up. They loan $80,000. It's going to take them more man hours, more work on their end than they would get for even issuing the loan. Think about that. It's going to cost more to issue the loan when you have all these people working on the deal because they don't hold on to the loan. What a bank does, if they issue an $80,000 loan, they basically sell that to another buyer and they get a little spread. They get a little commission. The commission they get, they're going to be in the red when they account for their banker's time, all the other expenses that go along with issuing the loan, the time it takes away from other more profitable customers, they're going to be in it. So they're not going to do it. So we're throwing money at these companies to say, oh, let's go look at it. Let's see if this is feasible. It's not doing anything. It blows my mind that people in Congress waste their time on a bill like this, and they treat it serious, and they all know it's a waste of time. It's like I said, it's all charades. It's all them going, so look at us, we just passed this thing, this is celebrated, look at what we did, and they're going to talk up this and that, and nothing is going to change. That's the truth.
Implementation could also prove challenging. According to the Urban Institute, the law tasks the Department of Housing and Urban Development with implementing at least 35 new programs, regulations, studies, and congressional responses. But after significant staffing cuts in 2025, some researchers question whether the agency has enough capacity to carry out these responsibilities. While several clauses in the new law require no funding, implementing them will still take time and resources.
What did I say exactly? It's like, even if, we're taking a big if here, let's just say they pass something that would actually make a difference. Where, I'm in a mood today, if you couldn't tell. But let's just say they passed something, and it was actually great. And I looked at this, and I said, you know what? All of this is going to make a huge difference for housing. It's going to speed up development. It's going to cut the cost. It's going to ease mortgage regulations. It's going to help you buy a house. It's going to do all of these things, okay? Let's just assume that's what happened, okay? Even if all of that went perfect, it's all great. Even if, it will take years to go into effect. And then let's just say, best case scenario, all this takes 3 years to go into effect. Well, guess what? It's going to take another 3 to 5 years to start to see that inventory roll on the market. And so best case scenario, really, this is best case scenario, 8 years later, we might start to see some relief. 8 years later, if everything was going perfect. But then I'll tell you, 8 years from now, we might have completely different economic conditions. Maybe the economy's in the shitter because AI just took your job and now you can't find work. And all of a sudden, everyone who owns a house now can't requalify for a mortgage because they're not working full-time anymore. So they have to stay put. And then we got a glut of housing coming on the market that no one can buy because everyone is out of work. Maybe the stock market falls because everyone is out of work. Maybe all these things occurred. And, it's just too far down the line. I'm telling you, the best thing you could do right now today is simply get rid of taxes on any profits of development of new real estate for the next 10 years. And I guarantee developers will jump through any hurdle possible. It'll be worth their time. And they will start building realistically in a year. So we could actually see 4 years from now housing coming onto the market. You can't fix this overnight. This is not something that you sign a bill and the next month, problem solved. It doesn't work like that. So best case I see if we actually do something meaningful a few years from now.
In other words, passing the bill is only the first step. Whether Americans actually see lower housing costs now depends on how quickly these reforms translate into more homes on the market.
Okay, so overall, in terms of what I think of this, gigantic waste of time that will do nothing. And I stand by that. It's not going to do anything. But please, if someone is in Congress, if someone has the power or the authority to make one change that will actually make a difference, get rid of taxes on developer profits. Let them build, let them make profits. You could even, by the way, cap it. Say, hey, the first $10 million you make in profit or $20 million you make in profit, tax-free, as long as you start new projects in these areas and you finish by this date. You have to close by this date to get that tax-free number. If you could do that, there you go. And then this discourages people like, Toll Brothers or, Pulte. They're building tens of thousands of houses across the country. Maybe it limits some of them, but if anything, I would argue they would do the most for housing because they have the infrastructure to be able to build housing fast. Now, I'm not saying that might be quality housing, but they could build housing fast. They have the people, the supplies, the know-how to basically take a plot of land, build thousands of houses, and sell them all. So that's my vote, okay? Just tax-free. And listen, I'm not going at this with any bias here because I'm out of real estate. I've sold basically everything. I still have a house that I rent out right now. And then this house here, and I'm not building. I don't want the hassle. I don't want the stress. So I got no skin in the game here. I'm not trying to say, oh, just don't tax me, guys. I'm just telling you what'll actually make a difference. So If you agree or disagree with me, let me know down below in the comment section. I will do my best to read and respond to everybody as I can. Thank you so much, and don't forget to check out our sponsor, Gamma, down below in the description. Would mean a lot to me because they help support the channel too, and I genuinely really enjoy their presentation. So with that said, thank you so much, and until next time.